Hi, I'm going to try to do a painting of a still stream in a wooded area, and here's one I've done earlier. I haven't got the knowledge yet to put a photo of the actual view on the video, so I'll just work and copy this one. Now, just a quick word about materials. I base most of my techniques on Ron Ranson, who was a guy that made painting with the hake, this 2-inch Chinese brush, very popular about 30 years ago. And there have been many painters using it, not least Stephen Cronin, who's got a wonderful series of videos on YouTube demonstrating the use of this brush. So I'm basically using Ron Ranson stuff, the same colours and the same as Steve Cronin. Here's my palette. It looks a bit of a mess, but unlike Ron Ranson, we use the colours in a dry fashion. It makes this little tray very portable to take outdoors. And I use 7 colours: raw sienna, yellow, a couple of primaries, 2 reds, alizarin crimson and light red, 2 blues, ultramarine and Payne's grey. That's a mixture of black and blue and a bit of the alizarin crimson, and a burnt umber, which is a very, very dark red and is very useful for mixing with other colours. The brush, of course, the 2-inch hake, and a rigger for doing a lot of fine stuff, just flicks and flourishes at the end. A couple of flat brushes for lifting out paint and or doing buildings. I've got a larger one somewhere, but I seem to have mislaid that one. Here it is. Here's a large inch flat, very useful. That's about all the equipment. I do a minimum of drawing on the paper, which is Fabriano, £130 weight. It's a very good paper, but doesn't bear too much mucking around with. It's fairly forgiving, but it's a good price. And for all the casualties that we get, it's not too expensive. So looking at my picture, I begin with soaking the paper with ordinary clean, well, mine's not particularly clean, but water, because this is a wet in wet technique, and the beginning of the picture has to be done fairly quick before the water dries in, and it's quite critical to get the background colours on while the paper is wet and shiny. Once it starts to lose the shine, leave it alone, because that's when you get all your accidents, the cauliflowers and so on that you might remember as youngsters at school. Right, so because it's a woodland scene and most of the sky is going to be covered up, I'm just going to put some basic sky colours from using this raw sienna. It's quite a warm yellow, and I take it right down into where the water is going to go, and I'll just put a bit of blue sky at the top, and then we'll go into the background trees and a bit down in the water. Right, that will do for the sky, and you'll see that the paint bleeds out, and because it's being done vertically, the gravity does take over, and you can use that to your advantage in blending all the colours quite naturally without using the brush again. If I use the brush now, it will make a bit of a terrible mess. So because the water is quite shiny, so I'll just dry off a little bit. Just to get the worst. The water's going into a cauliflower there, but no matter. Right, okay, now I'm going to put some background colours in first. I'm using a lemon yellow, one of the primaries, in this area here, because I want that to come down into the water and show the light in the distance. And I'll surround that both sides with a bluey sort of green by mixing ultramarine with that, and it hopefully will give an impression of distance, because blue colours recede, they're cool. But what you do on the right, try to do slightly different on the left. Otherwise you end up with a regiment of trees and clouds and all sorts, and it looks very boring. So I'm just going to vary the height and putting in more blues, because it's going to be covered up, a lot of it. It's just a background. And I won't do the reflection in the water at this stage. I'll just do this. Right, and so a bit of raw sienna, different type of yellow, and a bit of red, just to make it more interesting. Try to preserve this area of light in the middle. Now while that's, well, let's just make it a bit darker in here. Right, okay. Now while this is a bit damp, you'll find that because the paper is wet all over, it expands uniformly, and you can, by using these clips, stretch it out a bit. I think I might have lost a bit of the picture there. I'll just move the camera. I'm new to all this. For those of you that have watched the first couple of videos I made, I didn't make them to go public. I made them for a friend because she couldn't get to me last week for a bit of tuition, and I thought I'd email it to her, but it was too big for the email, so we had to go on YouTube. Alright, okay, this is a bit more dark. Right, now because the paper's flat now, with your fingernail, just scrape in some trunks and things. We're going to cover a lot of it up, but it just gives a bit of texture to the painting and looks fairly natural. But don't overdo it. It's a little goes a long way, which we always seem to forget when we're painting. We get carried away and we think, well, that's good, I'll do a few more of those, because a few more will be a few more times as good. But because it doesn't work out like that, I'll just reclip that side a little bit. Right, okay. Now I'm going to indicate the river bank, or it's a stream. If it was a fast flowing river, you wouldn't see many reflections on it, would you? So we'll just a bit of a dark colour, using the burnt umber, that colour there, if you can see it, and the ultramarine. Makes lovely rich warm darks, and very good for tree trunk colours, greys, lovely grey. So about there horizon, so just, it will, because the paper's still damp, it'll blend in. It'll start to bleed in different directions and go and diffuse, and you can exploit that. And it will dry lighter than it looks at the moment. And over here, because the bank is coming down there, I'm going to have it disappearing out this way. Otherwise I'll just get a repetition on the left and it'll look a bit monotonous and mannered. So I'll just keep a high, so that'll do. Something like that, and just a little bit of blue across, just to connect. That's fine. Right, now that's drying quite nicely. I'll just dry it off again, and then work in with some trees. Now bear in mind that as the trees go back further into the distance, they need to look cooler in colour and obviously smaller. So I'll clean my brush and I'll mix up some light blue. This hake, when you first start to use it, holds an inordinate amount of water, and if you have to learn to control it, and a lot of people give up long before they ever master the technique with it and say it's a rubbish brush, and it isn't. It's a fabulous brush, but you have to do many pictures with it until you get used to it. And doing this sort of painting, I was in an art club for many years, and you would find a lot of the people with watercolour boxes, very expensive, containing every colour known to man. And because they had such a choice, they were overwhelmed and got carried away with the idea that if you have all the art materials in the world, all the sable brushes, you'll make a masterpiece. Of course, it doesn't work like that. The only thing that makes a masterpiece is a lot of work over a lot of years. And that's what you have to do. We're not born with this ability. It's something we learn to do because we persevere with it. We go through all the years of doing rubbish, but something in us makes us go on and persevere. And there'll always be people better than ourselves. Always somebody better. When you look at Rembrandt, it makes you want to give up. But most people are never going to get to that level. And I just stay in my little corner and paint what I paint. 40 years ago when I started, my ambition was to be able to paint a good tree and a sky. Now, so I'm doing regiments, and I need to get away from that, and a lot of these are going to be covered up. But I only wanted to ever paint trees and skies, and then after a few years I could paint trees and skies. But if somebody said to me 40 years ago I'd be able to do something like this, as simple as this might look, I would have laughed. It was impossible. But it isn't. It isn't. You can do it. So I'm just going to put in some texture on this bank here, with some greens and stuff. Obviously, you can mix greens from blue and yellow. You can also use it by using your Payne's grey, the very dark colour. But you can overuse that sort of colour, and if you're not careful, it can go very muddy very quickly. Use with discretion. Right, something like that. And as it comes towards you, you can warm the colours up with the reds, all the brown. Right, okay. I will put more darks in because there will be dark areas in here because it's all the trunks and branches and leaves and things shield it shield the floor of the wood. So a lot of it will be in shadow. Good shadow colours, light red and the blue. That's called light red. It's a colour I think originally developed to paint roofs, especially Venetian roofs. Right, okay. Now, with your finger, you can always flick bits of grassy stuff, but there again, don't overdo it. A little goes a long way. I'm now going to put in some stronger trees up here. Well, I'll just do a little bit more in there. Bit more blue, very faint blue. Yeah, if the brush is too wet, you'll find it runs down and makes blots. So keep it fairly dry if you can. Right, I'm going to change that colour to mixing a bit of raw sienna with the lemon yellow, because that gives a nice bright sort of distant look. Right, okay. A bit more blue in there. Oops. I think I'll take that out. You can always blot it. I will go over it anyway, but just a bit overdone there. Right, okay. Right, I'm going to put in some nearer trees now, and I'm going to use that burnt umber with with the ultramarine. So this brush does very random things, and it looks spontaneous. Well, it is. I mean, it's an impression, and all I ever try to do is an impression of what I'm painting for. I'm making a picture, not a photograph. So these are quite warm greys. So because they're bigger as well, they look as if they're nearer and crossing over. I'm going to have some branches coming down from the top here, and I'm going to indicate some leaves. I haven't decided yet whether I'll do it like an autumn with reds in the leaves. They're changing colour, but vary the colours with them. Yeah, lovely hake. It does these lovely things, and as it gets more worn, it gets thinner, and you can do this sort of calligraphy in the trees. Got a bit blotchy there. Never mind. So you always need your tissue paper. So all this is helping to create a distance. Do the same here, but these trees here are further back. These will come further down. But try to do them a little bit different than the ones over there. A bit more dark. It's great fun, and you can do it very quickly when you get used to doing it. You don't have to spend days and days doing masterpieces. Simplicity, profound simplicity is my technique, but everybody's different. We all have different aspirations. We all want to do our own thing. We want to use our own brushes. This is just what I do, and a good few others, of course. There we go, that seems to be doing all right. Right, I'm going to dry that off now. I'm going to put some leaves on and some branches. Now notice I haven't touched the tiny brush yet, the rigger. Okay, we'll let that go. Dry my brush. Right, I'll just work on the banks a little bit with the dark. Right, just a bit of warmer colour there. Let's go over what I've done, I think. Just soften it a little bit. Right, now, if this will work, it might be a bit dry underneath, but a bit of card, just to show some rocky sort of stuff here. When you tear up your credit card or cut up your credit card, make sure it's an old one. Right, okay. Now we'll do some background leaves now. So because they're background, we'll do them bluey yellow. And with the hake dried off on a cloth. I've got to make sure you can see me doing this because of the camera angle. I haven't got any professional stuff here. I'm just using an ordinary webcam that's attached to my laptop. Dried off, and you see what happens? The bristles go all over the place in a random way, and it makes a lovely sort of stipple tool. Look, tiny bit of water on the brush. Right, they're just the background. So now we can, using the same technique, we can do some just a touch of water. The brown and blue, the burnt umber and blue. Get some heavier effects. And use some raw sienna, mix in with the brown to get, and a bit of yellow, so we get some autumn colours in there. You can do this as much as you like, but if you overdo it, which is very easy to do, you could completely ruin the picture. Right, now I'm going to just give that another dry on the bottom. I'm going to do some reflections now. So because this is, well, fairly dry, let's just make sure it is dry. Wet the paper again, and as long as you don't scrub and loosen the paint, you'll be okay. Right, now I'm going to bring some of this colour in the background down into the water. While that's all nice and wet, get a bit of yellow. We've still got some yellow on there. Just reflect the colours that are above where you're putting the reflections. And now you've got some scratches out, so you can put those in. And with the rigger, while it's wet, the paint's wet, plenty of water on it, you can just drag some branches or some trunks, tree trunks, down into it. It all bleeds into the surrounding water. Try to keep the colours more or less approximately similar to the ones behind. It tends to bleed out. Look, I'm painting this as a demonstration and not as a sort of studio portrait. Right, it's okay. Let's dry it. Just re-clip that a little bit. Now you'll see that more or less the paper hasn't croggled or buckled, it's just stretched, and by re-clipping it, it keeps it nice and flat. Right, I don't know what that is. Bit of paint. Right, so now I'm going to put in some rocks here. So with that, I'm going to use, still using the hake, mixture of colours, reds and umbers, because we're going to use the, when the brush starts to split like that, goes in clumps, just dip it in the tips in the water and re-wet it, and it brings it all together again. It can be infuriating, but when you get used to doing what I'm doing, look, it brings it all together again. So I'm just going to put some not dark enough, some darks here, right, like that. Right, over there. Right, so now with the credit card or the card, T-Mobile, start scraping away into the wet paint. Bit hit and miss, but it does give some sort of impression that there are rocks, and we can add a bit of brushwork to it in the mo. Right, okay, so okay, now with the, well, I used the hake, but I'm just going to put some dark bits around there to show the shadow side of the rocks. Bit of ocean. Right. I'm moving the camera, so I've probably moved my little easel that I've got the camera on. So right, not like that. Right. Not. Right. Okay. Right. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of reflection under there. So there could be dark. Right, a little bit there. Right, now, as I said, I'm going to bring some trailing branches from overhead now, so they need to be quite rich and dark in paint. You see, hold the rigger at the tip, so it makes it go more randomly rather than in a mannered sort of way. And quite a bit of paint, water on the brush. You can see how this tiny little brush can be pushed and made into a much wider sort of brush. I'm going to go over this with some more rich browny sort of autumn leaves. One coming in from the side here. Nice and dark. just one across here. There again, you can easily overdo this, but it's giving some more perspective, like what we call aerial perspective to the distance. It's making the background go back even further because we've got more detail, heavier detail in the front of the picture. We're trying to create an illusion of depth. So we'll dry that off. Now I'm going to put in do the drying of the brush on the cloth. Smash it up. They do last forever. Well, no, they don't last forever, but they last a long time, and they'll put up with any amount of rough treatment, and they're not very expensive. So I'm going to use some burnt umber and raw sienna, just dabbed into the palette, and just bung them on. And I'll use some bit of Payne's grey to give a really dark bit, like shadow leaves. Try and don't overdo the background. We want to keep that as light as reasonably possible. Right, now maybe just a few darks in here now to anchor these trees. So to get a nice dark, I'm going to use the burnt umber with the Payne's grey. It's a shortcut to making a dark. Same there. Right. Right. So we've got a good shaded area on the sides of the picture, and a nice light area in the distance. I'm now going to sign it and sign off. And I hope you've enjoyed what I've done. Then, if it's worked, I'll post it on YouTube. Thank you. Turn the computer off. How do I do that?